Hello, and today we'll continue with A Far From Grace. Cedric, wake up. Cedric and Victor's tent, followed by the surrounding campsite, came into view as the coyote opened his eyes, adjusting to the morning light. His father's words still rung out in the back of his mind, like the faithful toll of a ghostly bell. But who? Ridley was standing a few feet away, twirling a pocket knife in his left hand with one foot on the makeshift bed the two had been sharing. He still had nerve at all times. Cedric turned to his left, no trace of the fox. In fact, Victor's side of the bed appeared to have just been made. We didn't want to leave without you. Leave? Where are you going? Don't you remember? Or didn't Victor tell you? Scratch that. He obviously forgot to tell you. He's been too bothered letting us all know how to live. He's been too bothered letting us all know how in love with each other you both are. The sun bear let out a boyish giggle. Cedric blinked. What? Blake and I are supposed to be robbing the carrots up on Plowsman's Hill today. I asked Victor if you two wanted to join us. You know, it's always helpful to have a bigger team just in case. And Dion told me how well you did yesterday evening, so I came up with a plan. Could you just give me 5 minutes, really? The other bandit seemed to finally realize Cedric might need a moment to wake up and gather his thoughts. He took a few steps back, exiting the tent. Oh, and please ask Victor to come and talk to me. Of course, sorry for the rough wake-up call. Cedric sat up and raised his nose. Cedric sat up and washed his face. Using the porcelain bowl and jug he was sharing with Victor, he threw on a vest and donned a few pair of breeches Ridley had left at the foot of the bed for him. There's some bird making loud noises. That's what kind of threw me off there. As he was combing his hair, Victor walked back in. What is it, darling? So what's this about telling the whole world we're dating? I thought you'd be fine with that. And what's this other talk about a heist with Ridley and Blake? I wanted to wake you earlier, but you were so fast asleep I didn't. He left his sentence unfinished, paused to choose his words more carefully. I'm sorry, I should have asked you about both these things. Victor's face grew flushed with shame, and Cedric couldn't help but think just how adorable his partner looked like this. The coyote's expression finally grew more relaxed at the sight. He extended his right hand towards Victor. Thank you for apologizing, love. Now let's let bygones be bygones. They shook hands, Cedric leaning in to give the fox a quick kiss of reassurance. You can tell the others I'd love to join you all. I just need to finish getting dressed. I'll only be a minute. Take your time. Oh, speaking of getting dressed, could you pop by Ridley's tent as soon as you're done? He told me he needed to have a chat with you. Cedric sniggered at a small realization. My mood definitely scared him off. The fox returned to banter as he stepped outside again. I wouldn't be surprised. 'Twas absolutely frightful, my dear. Cedric shot Victor a playful stare. Yes, that's the look that scares him off. Cedric went to grab something soft to throw at the fox, but he had already darted away, chuckling to himself as his footsteps grew fainter. Once Cedric had combed his hair, as best as he could manage without a proper mirror, donned his jacket and his boots, and slipped a couple of small knives into a pouch in his right pocket, he made his way across the camp, heading for the bear's lodgings. As he stepped inside, he realized He never actually set foot in this particular tent. It was crammed with all sorts of objects, clothes, and fine jewelry. Shared the space along with a couple of candlesticks, mostly missing any candles, and a few books that had been left scattered on the ground. Cedric noticed to great envy that the bear even had a real mirror propped up against the tent's fabric. Willie was sitting on a rickety chair facing the glass with what appeared to be a blonde wig in his hands. Come on, Cedric. Are you feeling all right? I am sorry. I lost my temper just now. I need to apologize. I deal with Blake Brigham on a daily basis. Did you talk things through with Vic? It's all good now, and I'm ready to come along with you. Splendid. Now let me just explain how we're planning to go about this. Victor and Blake will be donning their masks and hiding as we wait for a carriage to pass by. However, you and I will be the ones putting on a bit of an act. He spun around, finally facing Cedric instead of the coyote's reflection. I see you've carefully combed your hair. Unfortunately, you're going to have to mess it up again. The more unkempt, the better. You'll be lying on the ground, feigning being wounded after being attacked by bandits, whilst I will be at your side posing as a fellow traveler calling for help. Our victims will come to a halt, and at least one of them will dismount from their vehicle as they lean forward to pick you up. That's when Vic and Blake will appear, and I will reveal whose side I'm actually on. That's pretty ingenious, I got to admit. And all I'm asking of you is to lie down for a while. What could be better? Cedric laughed as a dumb thought crossed his mind. You sort of kept me asleep and just carried me there in a stretcher. Here now, I didn't take you for such a slob, said. The coyote playfully waved off the remark. I'm going to have to get your clothes messed up and dirty. If we want to go through with our little act, I'll clean everything once we get back here, of course. I'm fine with whatever you want to do, Wid. You know I trust you. The sunbear picked up a thick hairbrush in a bowl containing a pale earth-colored powder, then walked over to Cedric. He began to unevenly dirty the coyote's jacket and breeches close to the tent's exit so as not to get any powder on any of the objects inside. Trust is a strong word, lad. Never trust a bandit. In fact, I hardly trust you. Who knows what nefarious secrets lie behind that sweet and innocent looking face of yours. He affectionately ruffled the coyote's hair as the finishing touch, then threw some powder on his own outfit and walked back to his chair, fitting a wig, some flask and a small mirror into a modest sack he slipped around his left shoulder. Off we go. As they joined the other two companions, Victor couldn't help but smile at Cedric's disheveled appearance. What do you do to him, Wid? Oh, hush, we've been over the plan, is all. The walk to Ploughman's Hill was longer than Cedric had expected, as said hill was located in quite a remote spot between the two valleys, each home to a couple of plain-looking towns. It looked like a big challenge for anyone to climb, both on foot and by carriage. It was steep, with a lonely, almost overgrown, narrow path. Once the bandits reached the hilltop, Cedric spoke to Ridley after catching his breath. If his disheveled look hadn't been convincing earlier, it certainly was now. So why on earth would anyone use this path? It doesn't look like this road leads anywhere important. It's a shortcut if you're heading to Castle Hillsford. Saves you over half an hour's trip compared to other roads. Then once you're in the town, it's a pleasant and straightforward journey to the larger southern towns, and eventually to the sea. That's interesting. So you're saying there's a good chance we'll come across some wealthy travelers. Definitely, you need to study the roads in this area, kid. Learn to spot which places you can use to your advantage. The coyote nodded. He'd make a point of doing so in the coming days. Now let's get off the path. There's a good vantage point a few feet away. You can see the whole valley, including anyone approaching the hill from there. As they made their way to the spot the bear had mentioned, Cedric spoke up again. Wait, you mentioned Hillsford. I almost forgot. Did V or Dion tell you about the masquerade ball we heard talked of? The folks we were listening to at the pub mentioned a big manor house outside our town. Don't worry, darling. We already told them everything. I know just the estate those two were referring to. Are you familiar with that? Are you familiar with it all, said? No, I've never actually been there before myself. No matter, we've all agreed on planning a big heist during the event. But it didn't take much to convince Dion that's the sort of camp shit he died for. As if you wouldn't love to be there, regardless of a planned heist or not. We all love our theatrics. It's why we joined the group. Aye, but he's still the biggest poofter out of all of us. It takes one to know one. Please, I don't want to be stuck here with your interminable banter, you two. Ridley rolled his eyes, sitting down on a fallen tree trunk covered in foliage. He opened his sack and pulled out the blonde wig the coyote had noticed earlier, pulling it over his naturally dark hair and fixing it in place. The Doberman chuckled. That thing does not suit you at all. This isn't a beauty contest, bitch. He turned to address Cedric again. I'm sorry, Ced. I keep forgetting. I should explain the method before this madness. Wild people without a mask more than a couple of times, and there's a chance one of them might recognize you. Hence this wig. Yeah, right. What about the odds? Why, rather high, I have you know, punk. Not a good old stabbing can't settle. Stab enough people and you won't have anyone left to rob. The sun bear proceeded to glue some smaller strands of hair to his cheeks and chin with the contents of one of the flasks he carried with him. It was almost as if the coyote was observing an actor gearing up behind the stage, awaiting his entrance, and here he assumed Dion was the most. And here he assumed Dion was the most. And here he assumed Dion was a dramatic one. You needn't worry about it yet, though. Said you're still new to the highwayman's trade, though. Still, one day you'll be infamous the country over. I told the kid I can always picture the wanted signs, didn't I? I see a carriage. Victor raised his voice, interrupting the two. The bear rushed over to observe the distant vehicle the fox was pointing at. There, at the foot of the hill. Ridley smiled, rubbing his gloved hands eagerly. Brilliant. Now, we put our plan into action. Victor, you stay here and don your mask. Blake, do the same, but wait on the other side of the road. Move it, move it. A spark of excitement was clearly visible in the bear's eyes. Cedric, follow me. After the long and arduous climb, the carriage and its 4 occupants reached the hilltop. Are you quite all right, Stewart? The stag, who had agreed to be the honorary coachman for the day's trip, replied from his seat. Never better. The girls might need a few minutes to gather their strengths. You still rather expect the pace to slow down for a while. Another voice from within the vehicle made itself known. You yourself had my Harry drive those horses today, you know. Nonsense. I didn't want to bother them. It's what I pay him a conspicuous amount of money to do. We have all your servants lazing about in the sun like Italian workmen instead of doing their jobs. Oh, don't start this again, you two. Greg, you know I'm lenient towards the common folk, and I wanted the four of us to get away together for the day, all by ourselves for a change. Let Stu be. You know he's right. We all get to enjoy our time by the seaside. Not to mention it will do Helen a lot of good. You know the doctor told her to get away somewhere sunny more often. I suggest a location in India. You won't find any sun in Britain. As the other nobles kept up their discussion, Stuart noticed an odd shape on the pathway about 30 feet away. When he first sighted it, he had assumed it was a large rock, but now he could clearly make out the shape of a young man lying with his back facing him, coupled with another figure crouched nearby. What the devil? What is it, Stu? I could see a couple of fellows on the road in front of us. One of them seems to be unconscious. The second figure noticed of the carrots and called us. The second figure took notice of the carrots and called out as he stooped up. Help! Please help! The carrots reached the two strangers. The bear's utterly disheveled look and the pure embroidered terror in his eyes filled Stuart with dread. Are you all right, my good man? What on earth happened? Oh, thank God you're here, sir. The bear was so upset he could hardly speak between sobs. He was now being observed by all the passengers who had begun peeping out the window with the curtains pulled back once curiosity had got the better of them. We were attacked, robbed. My friend here, he tried to escape and they... More heart-wrenching sobs followed these words. He's wounded, please help us. The sag jumped down from his seat and opened the vehicle's door, addressing the other male passenger. Quick, come and assist me. These fellows were attacked by bandits and one of them is unconscious. Can we do anything to help? Please stay inside, ladies. We'll just be a moment. Oh, thank you. I can't thank you enough. We need to get him to the closest town. He needs urgent help. You're a godsend, all of you. The bear was bad to his companion, positioning himself so that he was the only one facing him as the two nobles followed after, still merely being able to observe the canine figure from the rear. Stuart bent down on his knees, the owl following suit. He's still breathing, thank heavens. Let's roll him over. I'll pick him up by the shoulders. You hold his feet. Regan nodded. We need to move swiftly. He might not have much time left. A loud click resonated just above them. Actually, I wouldn't move at all if I were you. The two raised their heads only to see Whitley staring back at them, a pistol in his right hand pointed in their direction. With an ominous rustling of leaves, Blake and Victor emerged from the bushes surrounding their carriage. One of the women called out from within, noticing the unexpected silence. Is everything all right, Stu? This was followed by a shriek as Blake grabbed the spaniel, clapping a hand over her mouth and dragging her from the vehicle. Hearing the commotion, Stuart tempted fate by crying out, Bandits, run for your lives! He was sent toppling over, gasping for air as Whitley landed a powerful kick to his stomach. So we found today's budding hero. Aren't you a brave one? Victor opened the door on the opposite side of the carriage as its last occupant gazed on him in terror. Come on, my pretty. I won't have to drag you out like your friend, will I? Helen shook her head. She then did as she was told, joining her companions as the bandits surrounded them. Whitley nudged Cedric with his foot, signaling the coyote could now stand up to join them. As he did so, the four nobles locked on with dismay, realizing at last how every single detail had been set up. Listen to me, all of you. Now that we thoroughly established there is no real medical emergency occurring, we're here to carry out an exchange. I'll make this very simple. You hand us over all your valuables and you get to walk home alive. You have a chance to do so voluntarily. Personally, I comply. The bear was feigning a nicely matter-of-fact tone going through his lines as if he had done this a million times before. However, part of him also seemed to be relishing every moment, every dramatic pause, and every look of fear on his victims' faces, making this into some sort of twisted game. His speech also had a veneer of false courtesy, which added to the terrifying feeling that standing before them was an experienced bandit capable of absolutely anything if angered. Afterwards, we'll search you one by one. That's because many of your kind fail to actually hand over everything, which is a real shame. Because that's when things will get very ugly for the lot of you. Also, it is a waste of my time, quite frankly. And the longer you make me wait, the less merciful I will be. He paused for dramatic effect, tilting his head in Cedric's direction and giving him a Soto wink. This was incredibly jarring, considering the bear's terrifying presence and unquestionably convincing mannerisms. Cedric now understood the reason Victor soured weirdly with praise when it came to this stuff. You scoundrels, you're the bandits that guards have been searching for these last few weeks, aren't you? Stuart, please don't make this worse. You'll pay for your wrongdoings, mark my words. Victor rested his right hand on the stag's head, pressing down forcefully as he spoke. You really should listen to your friend's advice to keep quiet, mate. Or what? I'm not afraid of you vermin. The gallows are where you all belong. A loud shout rang out, smoke rising from the ground, mere inches away from the kneeling stag. Almost everyone jumped at the sudden noise, convinced one of the four nobles had just been killed. The horses began to wreathe. Startled at the sound, Victor ran up to them to try and keep them steady without risking them running off. He pulled the reins on one of the two, lowering its head close to his own and speaking to it slowly to calm it down. He then gestured at Cedric to come help with the other. However, Whitley had simply fired a warning shot in Stuart's direction, narrowly avoiding him with her unnerving precision. The shot served its purpose as the stag's moment of performative heroism was cut short. Enough! Follow my orders and hand over your valuables as fast as you can. Any more acts of bravery, and I'll start by shooting you in the legs and then work my way up. He turned to Blake. Tie them up as soon as they finish. Tie them up as soon as they're finished. Hi, sir. Cedric was surprised to hear the Doberman address Whitley in such a manner, but given the bear was this robbery's leader, it only made sense. Whitley gestured at the coachman. Make sure to tie a noose around this one's neck. Perhaps he can join us beforehand at the gallows if he tries springing any more surprises on us. Once the group had handed everything over to the bandits, they were searched thoroughly. None of them appeared to have been hiding anything, most likely having been scared off by Whitley's gunshot. Victor and Blake finished binding the nobles' hands and covering their mouths, after which the Sun Bear raised his voice again in a sarcastic tone. We're grateful for your cooperation. Now do me the favors of following my two companions without any hesitation. He spoke to the masked bandits, picking up the sack their victims had filled. Get them off the road. As soon as you reach a good location, bind their feet and join us again. And you lot don't try anything foolish. I'm a very good shot. He leered menacingly, having uttered his final words to the group, tapping a figure on the pistol he was holding in his right hand. Thank you for assisting a poor soul in need. The stag responded with a final glare, fury burning in his eyes at his powerlessness against the bandit. The group soon disappeared into the adjacent undergrowth, leaving Cedric and Ridley alone on a silent path. The bear removed his wig, placing it in the sack anew. Cedric was almost afraid to speak after what he just witnessed. He now knew trying to stay on the bandit's good side was his best bet. Very impressive work, Ridley. How good are you at horse riding, Sid? What? The coyote was baffled after being caught completely off guard by a seemingly unrelated question. I said, how good are you at horse riding? Well, I first took lessons when I was a kid, and I've been out hunting on several occasions over the years, so fairly good, I guess. Brilliant. You'll be sharing a horse with Blake then. He's hopeless with them. Ridley walked in the abandoned carriage's direction, freeing the horses from their harnesses and taking hold of the reins. But that's what he was talking about, Cedric thought to himself. The two each mounted a horse, waiting for the others to reappear. The animals were still skittish after the gunshot, though Cedric did his best to calm his own by having her moved around in small circles. Oh, you weren't joking. You're very skilled, Sid. The coyote gave a small shrug as he smiled at the sun bear. Can't really unlearn this sort of thing, I suppose. Soon after, Cedric and Blake's voices became audible as they reemerged from the surrounding forest, having removed their masks after leaving their victims behind. About time, you two. What did you do back there? Have sex? Are you jealous or something? For goodness sake, I asked you both to shut up already. The bear and Doberman laughed. You can't ask for something impossible, Vic. You've got your own boyfriend to worry about anyway. What do you mean, your own? We're not a couple. You bloody confessed you were still into me yesterday evening. Yes, and don't sound so desperate as a turn-off. As the others kept up the typical banter Cedric had grown accustomed to, Victor wandered over to the coyote, gazing at him on his new-found steed. Noticing he had the fox's attention, Cedric struck up a pose and imitated the manner of an army general, causing his lover to smile in amusement. I didn't realize I had fallen in love with a gallant knight. I'm utterly tousled, you half-wit. You look beautiful to me, darling, and you know I love a man in uniform. Hearing those words, Cedric suddenly recalled his dream the previous night. You know, I recently thought about that time you tried on my hunting suit. Do you remember that? What was that? It was the first time I gone hunting with my father. We went swimming in the lake after I got back, then I had you try on my clothes once we dried off. Of course, how could I forget? I recalled it vividly. Well, now as good a time as any to confess that the moment I saw you looking all handsome in that red jacket and those shiny boots, I got the most massive heart on. The fox burst out laughing. He obviously hadn't been expecting the remark. I was young, foolish, and sexually naive, so obviously I had no idea what caused it at the time. Oh, Cedric, I remember that day very fondly. I had just realized I was massively in love with you. Cedric's mouth hung agape. You were? You were more worldly wise. You were more worldly wise than me, evidently. Victor's expression turned mischievous. I also recall I was holding a whip when I tried your suit on. Ridley suddenly interrupted the conversation, raising his voice so that all could hear him. Everyone, please, have you all lost your minds? We need to get out of here before anyone else shows up. Make sure you search that carriage for valuables, then easily you hop on behind Cedric and I. You can resume any conversation when we're home again. Move it! The other bandits did as they were told, Victor opening the doors to the vehicle and Blake untying the sacks placed in the rear to check their contents. Once that was done and the group was finally able to ride back down the hill, heading toward the familiar site of Hidden Forest. Late afternoon slowly crept in. The contrast between the dimming warm light and the trees' dark elongated Saddles was growing more apparent as summer neared its end. Cedric couldn't avoid feeling there was a supernatural mystery to this forest, home to many bandits and rovers before the masquerade's time. He recalled Dr. Phillips, his algebra teacher, whose enthusiasm for Celtic myths and legends had fascinated the coyote at a young age, added an enjoyable conclusion to many a tedious lesson. The curious aspect was that now he and the others felt like they were witnessing one of these tales from the opposite perspective, as if they were the mischievous spirits inhabiting the ancient woodland. Once they all reached the camp, they jumped off the horses whilst Victor picked up the bag with the day's loot, carefully inspected the various items. Dion will be very glad to see today's findings. We've been working hard this week. How do you fellows go about sharing the loot amongst yourselves? Good questions usually split equally between us. We all put in our amount of hard work each day, so it's only fair. Usually Dion is the one who deals with the distribution as well as estimating what certain items might be worth, though to be fair, Selwyn often has a knack for that too. Good evening, boys. Robbery went well, I presume? It's hardly evening yet, Hole. Ah, yes, you're right. The sun's just beginning to get to set sooner, and my brain refuses to adapt. Carlos walked over from his carriage to join them, beaming once he noticed the newfound steeds. Why, these are some fine-looking animals. I'll make sure that they're adequately fed and can take them to the market tomorrow morning. He took hold of the reins, tying them to the side of the vehicle. Victor resumed his conversation with Cedric. As you can see, even these horses can come in handy by helping us earn a pretty penny. The coyote nodded. It's all very practical. When you've got to make do with anything you come across, you'll start to think of so many options you will have never even entertained the notions of before. In fact, I'm sure you already have, plus you're a fast learner. Any other wit's bastard would be completely clueless and would die out in a week. Serves them right, too, accustomed as they are to servants getting all their work done every single day. I'm sure some wit's folk would be able to survive. People can be surprisingly resourceful given the right context. Victor rolled his eyes. I'll believe it when I see it. Whitley, who had been keeping up his usual banter with Blake, waltzed over to the two canines, clearly proud of himself after a victorious outing. He chuckled as he eyed Cedric the coyote, somehow looked even worse than he had during the robbery, bits of dirt clearly visible in his hair and various dusty patches on his jacket and breeches. Said, I'm so sorry we literally had to do you dirty today. Each one of us pulled off that robbery with near a single mistake. I'd be proud of myself if I were you for orchestrating it at all, Red, and who cares if I had to be the one lying down in the dirt. Nevertheless, I want to hand you some clean garments. Please come with me. He moved away, heading for his tent, waving a hand at Victor and Hollis. Won't be a minute, you two. Oh, Hollis, can I have something to drink while you're about? Anything you like will do. The tiger bellowed after him. I'm not a waiter. How many times must I tell that brazen bear? Cedric caught up with him as he entered the tent, weirdly taking off his jacket and throwing it on the untidy bed. I just wanted to talk to you alone for a moment. The bear sounded unusually serious. He picked up and effortlessly lit a pipe he kept next to his mouth. Do you smoke? I have another pipe in one of these drawers. Thank you very much, but I'm not really big on smoking. Like you. That bandit cleared his voice, his eyes meeting Cedric's. I hope nothing I asked you to do today made you uncomfortable. Not at all. I know I can have a tendency to let people walk over me a little, and you probably figured that out already just by chatting with me. Hearing all about that Lysander friend of yours did give me a hint. But trust me, if I were uncomfortable with anything, I would let you know. Whitley nodded, seemingly satisfied by the answer, sitting down and opening a couple of drawers for a small cabinet as he did. Good, I like a man who is able to stand up for himself when needed. In my life, I've learned it can be no good keeping things bottled up, as you know. He handed over a clean jacket of a silver shade, agreeing to Cedric's usual but with a few more intricate ornaments on the cuffs. I feel like you and I share quite a strong connection, said. I felt I felt it since that first evening we chatted together, so if there's ever anything on your mind, or if you ever need help with anything, I'm here to listen. The coyote smiled, touched by the bear's kind offer. There was a spark in the bandit's eye in the moment he uttered his next words. I find you very cute, too. I can tell what Vic sees in you. Senator modesty turned to growing embarrassment after hearing that statement. Whitley stood up and combed the coyote's messy hair back with a gloved hand. His voice was warm and as smooth as silk. I suspect you have eyes only for that fox of yours right now, at least in a romantic sense, but physically, still you ever want to get up to anything fun with me, just know my door is always open for anything you like to do. Unless I'm not your type, which you know, I'm fine if I'm not. What's happening? Was the cool, confident Whitley getting flirty with Cedric of all people? The coyote had trouble wrapping his mind around this, especially since he had come to realize over the past few days that he himself found the bear very attractive. There was a reason he opened up so quickly to the bandit. What he liked in Whitley was similar to what he liked in Victor, the kindness, the confidence, the openness, the charm. Obviously, he shared a connection with the fox that couldn't even begin to be matched by anyone else, but when it came to physical attraction or mere infatuation, he was confused. There was no way around it. In fact, he felt the same way about most of the other bandits as well, though to a lesser extent. Noticing his distant face expression, Whitley took a step back. Perhaps I should point out my advances are not romantic, and you wouldn't be going around. You wouldn't be going behind Victor's back were you to ever get physical with me. You can freely discuss it with him. He's done such things in the past himself. Truth be told, we've all slept with each other before, Selwyn being the only exception. That's because he doesn't care much for sex, which I honestly envy him for. But we're all very open about the subject, which is now, I feel, everyone should be. Cedric finally replied, I'm just stunned you like me. Well, what's not to like? I'm not sure, I wouldn't. This is all just so unexpected. I hadn't even figured out my preferences until 2 or 3 weeks ago. For heaven's sake, the bear laughed. It's all right, he said. You have all the time in the world to think about this. I find you very handsome, Whitley. That boldness of yours is a bit turn on. Cedric blurted out his confession before his brain was able to keep him from doing so. Oh, so my flirting hasn't been in vain after all. The coyote looked away, too flustered to make proper eye contact. After a short pause, Whitley spoke again, noticing the fat Cedric was still standing near the tent's exit. Please sit down while you change your clothes, said. All this standing about business is starting to get a bit awkward. I will offer you a drink, but as you can see, I'm all out. Cedric thanked him and sat on the bed, setting the clean garments to his right and taking off his dirty jacket. He smiled nervously as the bear puffed his pipe in his chair. The coyote kept up the conversation, still feeling rather insecure, but also not being able to contain his own rabid curiosity. What specifically about me would you even call attractive? Do you really have such little self-confidence, lad? You take a lot of care in dressing well and appearing properly groomed each morning. You hadn't me fooled. I suppose I always correlate how I look. I just never thought of it that way. You're a well-spoken, modest, and elegant boy who knows what he wants and is ready to stand up for himself. Personally, I find that irresistible. Even Blake has told me he finds you hot. He's extremely picky. It's insane. And Mary Victor suddenly burst into the tent with a couple of drinks in his hands. Drinks all around. He shifted to a more serious tone, noticing he'd likely interrupted something. Is everything all right? You two have been gone for a while. Ridley replied before the coyote was able to even think about what to say. Well, fine. I've been trying to instill some well-deserved self-confidence and said here. Told him both Blake and I find him attractive, and he still won't believe me. He thanked Victor, taking hold of his drink whilst Cedric buttoned up his new jacket. I'm sorry, I'm still stunned, that's all. You oughtn't be, my love. I'm just lucky I managed to steal you away before any other young blade did. The fox's eyes lit up. You know, I had a fun idea. He turned to face the Sunbear. How about a farm contest between us that pass the evening and to train Cedric's rifle skills? I like the sound of that. Blake could assist him when it's his turn. He's a firearm nut. Yes, that would be perfect. Does that sound good to you, sweetheart? Cedric smiled. It sounds brilliant. The bandits all spent the evening making merry, Cedric feeling the newfound sense of belonging for the place and his new companions growing ever stronger. The shooting contest was a success, and though the coyote felt a bit rusty after not having held a pistol in ages, he still managed to win a couple rounds, notably impressed the stern Doberman. During the meal that followed, Dion sat next to him, pretending to strike up a casual conversation at first, only to follow it up by asking Cedric for advice on a new script he was writing for a play called Nymphoriana, Queen of the Forest. Selwyn then showed the coyote some new sketches explaining in detail the mechanical contraptions he conjured on paper. Once the meal was over, a tipsy Victor strongly proclaimed that in the near future, Cedric would be able to kill a man from a mile's distance with his amazing marksman skills. This started off a series of imaginary bloody scenarios from each one of the bandits involving Cedric and the ruthless killer. The coyote himself was a bit put off by this, as he objected to the mere thought of murdering someone, not to mention he hadn't imagined the bandits actually considered killing any of their victims in option. We merely jest, my boy. Of course, we don't expect a sweet youth such as yourself to turn into such a ruthless rogue. Nor does every rogue have to be a murderer. Exactly. That might only happen in extremely dangerous and unexpected scenarios. Though the others attempted to reassure the coyote, the uneasy thought of ending up in a deadly situation someday lingered in the back of his mind. He recalled Victor's tale of the two noblemen's duel in his old hideout. After toasting Cedric one last time, the group split up, each retiring to their tent for the night. Ridley scampered over to Cedric one last time, calling out his name to get his attention. I didn't get to say this to you earlier, said. Would you like to go for a walk with me tomorrow evening? I have a feeling the two of us could have a nice long chat together. And if not tomorrow, any evening you like, just let me know. That sounds lovely, of course I will. Sleep well, said. Sleep well, Red. Good night, lad. The bear replied with a wink and walked off in the opposite direction. Victor wrapped his left arm around Cedric's right. I have a feeling you like him as much as he likes you. The coyote gave a humorous reply. Whatever you do you mean, my sweet fox? I find it very cute. V, you know I love you, and that will never change. Of course, my darling. But I will be honest and admit, Weird has successfully charmed me. On a surface level, at least, there's just something about him I like, something that reminds me of you. I never thought of that, but you have a point. The two entered their tent as they conversed. Cedric sat down on the bed and began to undress whilst Victor lit a couple of candles. The dim light lent an intimate, magical aura to the space the two were in. Another near supernatural aspect was the fact that Cedric was having a conversation he never thought he'd be having with anyone in his life up till that very moment. He'd never been in love before, and though he previously felt physical attraction towards certain people, his mind had always attempted to repress it. This really was the first time he was able to discuss it freely. It almost felt like being a teenager all over again, discovering what love and infatuation are for the first time, and feeling like the world is at your feet. You know, physical attraction and romance are two very different things, even though many people will try to convince you they are one and the same. And Coyote wasn't quite sure how to interpret that statement. Thinking it over, he realized Victor was right. What he discovered he felt for Whitley was not even remotely the same emotion he felt for the fox, but there must have been a reason why Victor was explaining it that way. So you're saying you don't mind? The fox lit one more candle, replying delicately. Not at all, and the fact you've been honest about it with me makes me love you even more. The fox took off his overcoat, slowly spinning around to gaze at Cedric lying naked on the bed. It looked even more irresistible in the candlelight. And to tell you the truth, I don't feel tired at all right now. He let his breeches slide down to the ground and took a step forward. Are you in the mood for anything? One option here contains adult content. If you prefer to skip this, please select the SFW option. Yeah. Obviously, gotta skip it. Yeah, you can. Well, you want this choice, you're free to download the story on your own time. You're so very gorgeous, V. But I'd rather save this for another evening when I'm feeling a little less worried, a little less tired. Victor picked up his breeches a little awkwardly, folding them and laid them down at the foot of the bed. Of course, it's up to you. Noticing the fox's smile, Cedric replied with a drowsy grin in turn, not wanting to disappoint his partner. Come here, you rascal. As soon as Victor had sat down next to him, Cedric pulled him in for a tender kiss. The fox leaned in and kissed back, stroking Cedric's hair. You did very well today, and we make a great team. Thank you for everything. Good night, sweetheart. See you in the morning, my boy. Cedric was up early the next morning, so while Victor was still asleep, he decided to go for a quick walk in the forest after getting dressed. For the first time in what he reckoned were 3 or 4 months, the morning air felt chilly on his fur, as an enchanted summer autumn was inevitably on its way. The poetic landscape of the woodland the coyote had now gotten used to calling his home was awash with the warm morning light and thrill echoing birdsong. Thinking to himself, he realized he was already aware of how sad he would feel on the day the group decided it would be better to leave in search of a new hideout. This was a moment in his life he was going to treasure the memory in the coming years, that months he was sure about. He walked beside the murmuring stream, watching the sunlight grow brighter over the hesitant grow wider over the distant and quaint view of the hidden stone town, hidden behind the theatrical setting of a row of secular trees. The strong sense of being an outsider looking in was ever present at his side as he observed the tiny figures of the villagers going about their daily lives, along with the carts, carriages, livestock, and groceries being transported in and out of town. However, the coyote was no longer a lonely outcast. He had found the group he knew he belonged with, and it was a feeling he'd never had a chance to experience before that filled him with joy, almost to the point of making him want to dance all by himself as he wandered the shady greenery. Now that he'd begun to steadily improve his banditry skills, now that he started to grow closer with the others, now that his relationship with Victor had gotten off to a strong start, he felt perhaps naively that he could take on any challenge the world sent his way. He knelt down by the watercourse to give his muzzle a quick rinse, gathering the cool water in his hands. He was feeling productive, perhaps cooking some breakfast for himself and the fox could be added to the day's agenda. Reaching the camp 10 minutes later, he noticed the bed the two were sharing was now empty, meaning Victor was finally awake. Perhaps the fox had also opted for a morning walk to stretch his legs. Cedric knocked on the squeaky door to Hollis's carriage. This was followed by the sleepy tiger's appearance a few seconds later. "Morning," said. "What can I do for you?" "I'm sorry, Hollis. Do you have any bacon and sausages stored away with our supplies? I was thinking of cooking some breakfast for V and I. I can make something for you, too, if you like." Hollis yawned loudly and stretched his tired muscles. "Yes, I do, and yes, that would be most appreciated. It's a real pleasure to hear someone offer to cook something for me for a change." He wandered back inside the vehicle, re-emerging shortly after with the meat Cedric had asked for. "I think these to do." Cedric, being his stomach, began to make itself heard. "They're more than enough, thanks. Do you know where Victor is, by the way? I went for a morning walk, and now that I'm back, he's not in bed anymore." "I'm not sure. I'm barely awake, to be honest, though I think I heard him speaking to Blake. They might have gone for a quick hike by themselves." "I see. I'll let you know when breakfast is ready." "Thanks, Sid. Much appreciated." The coyote took a while to cook everything just the right amount, but by the time he felt he was done, the sausages and bacon looked and smelled delicious. No sooner had he begun to walk over to the tiger's carriage to let him know the food was ready that he caught sight of the fox heading back towards the camp, with a notably excited air about him. "Food's ready, Hall." "Coming." Victor gave Cedric a quick kiss once he reached the spot where the coyote was standing. "What is this delicious smell, darling?" "Well, I'm feeling productive today, so I thought I'd start by cooking breakfast for the both of us." "Oh, you didn't have to. That's wonderful. I can't wait to try what you've made." The coyote picked up a few spare tin plates Hollis had cleaned the prior evening, scraping the sizzling hot meat onto them and handing them to Victor and the tiger. "I hope you don't mind me not hanging around you two, but I prefer to have breakfast by myself as part of my morning routine." "No problem at all. You know where to find us if you need anything." Hollis disappeared from sight, leaving the two lovers by themselves around the warm campfire. This warmth will soon be a blessing once the winter comes around. Victor lifted his eyebrows after taking a bite off one of the sausages. "Since when were you also a great cook, my dear?" "Just something I chose to practice every once in a while, never knowing when it might come in handy, and sure enough it has." "These are fantastic." As Victor chewed on the meat, he spoke up again, still notably excited, as to why Cedric was still in the dark. "I'm excited, as you can probably tell, and that's because I received some very good news. Blake told me that he came across a couple of bandits hiding out in another part of the forest last night. They didn't see him, slick as he is, but he overheard them both boasting about a successful robbery they just pulled off as they dined. And from the description he gave me, these two matched the appearance of a couple of rotten scoundrels I was once unfortunate enough to stumble upon. Blake even saw the sacks with the loot they'd thrown about on the ground next to them, and I'm telling you, it was no beggar's money, but fine silver, gold, and sparkling jewels. Far cry from the pitiful robberies those two were engaged in when I first met them. I'll give them that. The coyote was a tad confused as to why Victor had gone on a tangent about a couple of other bandits' success. Even though he obviously seemed to know the two, nevertheless, he decided to engage with the fox's tail. That sounds very nice for them. I'm glad they've been as lucky as we have recently. Victor snorted loudly, replying with his mouth full. You silly goose. I'm describing all this to you because I want the two of us to take their loot from them. This was unexpected. Of all the things the fox could have said it felt this one came out of left field more than anything he could have attempted to picture. He was puzzled at this latest revelation and took a moment to gather his thoughts. What, so steal from other bandits? What about honor among thieves and all that? Victor spat out the bacon he'd been chewing, laughing wildly. Oh, please, you're way too much of a gentleman, my dear, especially considering the two we're talking about. Noticing the coyote's increasingly troubled look, he elaborated. You're correct. Usually I wouldn't bother doing such a thing, but why not steal from them if fate has led them and their gold straight to us? They've no doubt heard there are other bandits hiding out in these woods, and yet have selflessly ignored that information. I'm not saying they wouldn't be welcome if they came to us in friendship, but they've made a conscious decision not to do so. Cedric didn't like this idea at all, but seeing Victor act so self-assertedly must have meant he knew what he was doing, and his explanation seemed to make sense. He took a deep breath and answered as best he could. I guess you have a point. They could have joined or formed a temporary alliance from the masquerade, yet they didn't. He ought to go through with this. You only live once. I'm willing to go along with your plan as long as it's not a risky feat. The fox wiped his mouth, still chuckling. I'm not going to sugarcoat this. It would be very risky. I'm sure those two will be armed, but we have the element of surprise. So in case either of them decide to pick up a weapon, we shoot them before they be able to do anything. In fact, I might ask Blake if he'd be willing to hide nearby and keep his rifle pointed in their direction the whole time. You could even swap places with them if you felt like it. You proved you were a pretty good shot yesterday evening. These words sent Cedric's mind spinning. The other bandits had often portrayed themselves as ambivalent on the subject of taking lives. They assured him they would only kill someone in absolute dire circumstances. Was this really a situation Victor would consider dire? Fox discussed the matter so flippantly as if he were listing off some items he was meaning to carry along for an outing, filled the coyote with a sense of dread and justified rage. But could it be that he was wrong? Was this the last step he was going to have to overcome if he wanted to be a proper bandit? Was this really what it was going to take? So are you willing to take their lives over some gold? Is that what you're saying? Victor looked puzzled after hearing the question. What I'm trying to say is I'm hoping it doesn't have to come to that, but we need to be ready in case it happens. Now, this This is something Cedric wasn't ready for. Something he objected to, no matter the consequence. Victor wasn't going to talk his way out of this. I'm not going to kill anyone. I thought I made myself sufficiently clear yesterday evening. I'm not a murderer. I'm morally object to the very idea of taking someone's life. How can you speak of doing something like that so lightly? Cedric began to raise his voice, moving away from the fox. Look, I understand your concerns, but a bandit's life isn't all sunshine and roses. This is one of the first things I told you yesterday we set off on our journey. The sooner you're faced with this fact, the better. The coyote stood up, anger now burning inside him as Victor's dismissal of his feelings. There's a difference between ending up in a deadly situation and choosing to actively create one. I thought you knew better than that. I thought you knew better than to do such a thing, V. The coyote stood up, anger now burning inside of him, and Victor's dismissal of his feelings. There's a difference between ending up in a deadly situation and choosing to actively create one. I thought you knew better than that. I thought you knew better than to do such a thing, V. The fox sprung up from his seat, imitating his companion, finally losing his temper and growling with each word he spoke. So what? Now you're the arbiter of morality? Give me a break. I guess some of the attitude from the sort of wit scum I know far too well has rubbed off on you after all. There was no moderating to be done anymore. This had now turned into a full-on argument. Cedric finally burst after hearing the fox's latest insight. I hate to break it to you, but I'm the descendant of a noble family, and the world isn't all black and white. I thought you realized that, but now all your previous venomous comments about anyone from a higher class than yourself make sense. Is that really what you think of all people from a wealthy background? Is each and every one of them the very devil in your eyes? A giant monolith you're bent on attacking? What makes you any better? Stealing from and killing others who are in just as bad of a situation as yourself. That doesn't make you a skilled bandit and makes you a hypocrite. The moment you kill someone, you are implicitly declaring they deserve to die and you deserve to live. That's what you're saying. By actively claiming your life is worth more than theirs, you're sitting on the same level of awful morals as the rich jerks you so despise. Victor's eyes betrayed a look of hurt and disappointment. He hadn't been able to answer and had left Cedric to his rant, but his rage eventually got the best of him as he clenched his fist, stepping forward. Who the fuck do you think you are? You think you can show up here and lecture me on how to live my life? Insult me and call me a fucking hypocrite? People such as you killed 10 times as many people any bandit has, and they don't even have the guts to do it with their own hands. And now I'm the savage. Perhaps you're not fit for this after all. Perhaps I should have left you to rot away and feel sorry for the sick life you are leading. That gilded rage of yours. He moved away, lowering his voice. I thought this could have been a new beginning for you, for both of us. Cedric shook his head even though he knew the fox couldn't see him. So did I, Victor. I guess I was wrong after all. I'll ask Blake to assist me with the job. I'll see you later. Victor's last words were the nail in the coffin for the conversation, after which he and Cedric both walked off in opposite directions. The coyote had no idea where his steps were taking him, but all he knew was that he needed to walk to get away. His thoughts were a mess, each of them ringing out loudly in his head, creating a silent cacophony he desperately wanted to repress. Throughout all this time, he constantly questioned whether he was the one in the wrong, but deep down he knew he wasn't. Victor was the one who owed him an apology for expecting too much of him, for talking down on him and forcing him into scenarios the coyote was uncomfortable with. he never agreed to be the same kind of bandit Victor was. In fact, both of them had admitted they wanted this to be a temporary situation before they could attempt to build themselves a better life. Right now, however, it appeared Victor cherished his life and refused to listen to anyone except himself. Alright, so I'm going to stop right here. Okay, so that ended very bad. So, like I said before, the whole social class plays a big role in the story, and it definitely plays a big role between the relationship between Victor and Cedric. And Cedric doesn't want to kill anybody, and Victor seems willing to kill somebody, even though the people Victor seems to be willing to kill are people who are just like him, really. They're in the same economic class and they're bandits just like him. So I wonder how they gotta patch things up in the next update. So really got flirty with Cedric. He very much liked Cedric, and he didn't hide it. And it caught Cedric by surprise. He was kind of shocked by what Willie said to him. So, yeah, Willie likes him not just because of his physical appearance, but because his personality, in the way he dresses, and just the way he goes about stuff. So really, he does his job well as a bandit. And the Doberman, he's very blunt in doing his job. Well, both of them are. But anyway, yeah. So I wonder how both Cedric and Victor are going to patch things up next time. Because, Victor yelled at Cedric because, apparently he thinks that Cedric is going on this big morality boost. You think he has a high morality, because he's against killing, and then Victor tells him that his social status have killed more people than any bandit has. Which, it's not wrong. They may not do the killing directly, but they hire people to kill. So Victor's not entirely wrong about that, but I hope the two of them can, talk it over next time, because it's certainly a low point right here. So this also, the point where I just stopped just now, that's also where the newest update of A Fall from Grace starts at. So this new update came out about 3 months ago, so in the next video we'll begin the newest update of A Fall from Grace. So there'll probably be like 3 videos in that, so once we're done with these next 3 videos, we'll be up to date with A Fall from Grace. So, thank you all very much for watching. Bye.